Hello,
Uh,
Dr. Caroline.
No, hi, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. Lovely to meet you, Jack.
Lovely to meet you too. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat.
Oh, no, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. I love what you do. It's amazing. So
Thank did you get the chance to check out any of the episodes or the songs?
I a couple a while back. I haven't binged for the last. You first invited me, and I actually looked back then. So it's beautiful. I've read all about what you do and everything. So it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm
And are you feeling inspiring? Can you inspire us all?
I hope I'm always inspiring. I love my work. So I think like you love yours. So when we talk about what we love, we always generally quite inspiring, I think.
Definitely. I'm actually getting mostly guest musicians to come on the show now instead of myself. Now I've passed 100 episodes. I'm sharing the experience with other musicians, but I particularly wanted to talk to you myself because also it seems all musicians want to talk to therapists. And I could just I could honestly do episodes just on, speaking to neuroscientists like yourself, psychologists.
Yeah.
I mean,
The mind is so fascinating.
and broken.
Exactly, exactly, and that's okay. We just got to learn how to manage it. So,
Yeah. So I'm hoping that's what you can help me with today. Because I see you're a cognitive and clinical neuroscientist and communication pathologist. So wow, I mean that your business card must fold out.
there's a lot of I've been in the field 38 years, almost 40 years now. So it's a long time. Lots of
And now and now you're just doing communication. I mean, you're up to almost up to 400 episodes with with your
yeah, we've 30 million downloads, and yeah, so it's really reaching. We've reached a lot, and I also do clinical trials. I do a lot of research still, so I'm always researching the whole research division that I run. We've got 3 trials on at the moment, just to constantly try and understand what's going on and improve what I do. And so, yeah, and then I do books. I write a book every 18 months. I'm writing one for mental health and children at the moment. And yeah, I do a lot of conferences. Yeah, teaching people all this mind management. We,
so
bad, we badly need it. We've been overdrugged, and, we need to help people understand how to actually, what to do with themselves. Literally.
wow. And you're the proof of the pudding because if you can do all of these things, then it's
Oh,
proof
that's
that your technique work.
thank you. Well, I've got 4 kids. They're all adults, and 3 work for me. So that says something.
Okay. That's a very big compliment. Yeah, I've been using your app today. I've just been trying to get to grips with it and getting up to speed with it. And
Oh,
maybe we could come into that a bit later about you could give me some tips. I'll tell you some issues I had with not with the app, but with my mind.
oh, sure, absolutely. Okay, so just so I've got an interview at 1:30. I don't know what the time is there in Italy. So we've got about 40. I'll have to jump off 5 minutes before because I have to go to another room to use another podcast kit. So
Okay.
we've got to finish at 12:38. I've got to yeah, my next one's 1:30, so I have to finish at 1:25.
Okay, great. Well, that gives us plenty of time. So
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
let's just dive straight in there.
Sounds wonderful.
Uh, Maybe you could just give a little introduction as to what is a cognitive and clinical neuroscientist or communication pathologist.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. So I studied basically what I do is the most simple version is to understand the mind brain body connection. So I help people on a clinical level look at where they are at with what they say, what they're doing, how they're feeling, their perspective in life, how they're feeling physically, all the sort of how they're showing up, and then tracking that back to where is this coming from? How do I, if that's how I'm showing up. What do I think about myself? What's going on inside of my mind in terms of the thoughts? And then from there, why do I have that? To retrace back to the origin story and then to fix that. So that's the one side working with people. I think when I say fix that, I should rather say reconceptualize that, because whatever's happened to us is our story. You can't change a story, but you can change what's inside of you, which then influences how your story plays out in the future. So whatever's happened to you has happened to you, but by embracing and processing and reconceptualizing, as opposed to just changing, trying to change from toxic thought to a positive thought, or just saying a positive affirmation, or just doing a few techniques, those won't be sustainable. What we have to do is embrace what we're going through, but not get stuck in embracing. We have to process, but not get stuck in processing. And then we have to reconceptualize. And when we put all of those 3 together, we can learn to live with the uncertainties and challenges of life and grow from there and be okay with not being happy all the time, and be okay with having some level of sadness, and be okay with, that life is hard and I've got to just keep going, and that these great moments, and how to enjoy the beautiful moments, and how to get joy out of the tiniest things. So that's very much a big part of my objective, is to do that. So on a clinical level, I would work with people. I don't practice anymore. I practiced for 25 years. I would work with people with dementias and Alzheimer's and autism and learning disabilities, severe learning disabilities, traumatic brain injuries, traumas, severe traumas, like really heavy war trauma, sexual trauma, that kind of thing. And then I would help people just manage life and just deal with, because not everyone has massive stuff all the time, but some people are immersed in terrible things for long periods of their life. Others have bursts of bad things happening. Every human has bursts of bad things happening, and every human lives with ups and downs every day. And so, what I've tried to do in my narrative and in my work is to help people to recognize that's very much part of being human. It's a reasonable response to be depressed when you have something bad happen to you. It's not that you have a mental illness or a brain disease. It's actually a very reasonable response. But how do we manage that? Because staying stuck in that response as an initial coping strategy is fine, but how can you reconceptualize so that you can keep on going forward? So that's kind of a big picture summary of what I do, what I did, and what I still do.
Okay, great. So what is different about your work? Because I think many other therapists talk about it reconceptualizing and getting the gap between the you and your thoughts. What is it that your work really is this different thing about it?
I think the difference is there's a lot of similarity, obviously, in different therapies, because all of us are trying to help humankind. But essentially, what I've looked at is how I provide a system or a vehicle, a car. Think of a big car within, or even a truck. Think of a truck was big. Um, you can put whatever you want into that truck. So I provide the vehicle that will take you to your destination. And that destination being mind directed neuroplasticity. I want to get my mind right because the pattern of my mind will determine the pattern of my brain and my body, because the mind, brain, and body are separate. So the difference in my technique is that the mind, brain, and body are separate but interact. They separate but they interact, and how that works. And secondly, that the system I've developed called the neurocycle to take advantage of that process, to make it work for you, not against you. And into that, you can put any technique you want. I mean, there's some really great therapy techniques out there, but it's putting it into the right time frame so that your mind, that your brain actually rewires properly. And your mind does that process of rewiring properly to clean up the messiness in your mind. So that's really what would be, I think those two elements are very distinctive. I work a lot on the neural coding. So how long it takes for networks to form, what are networks, what are thoughts, what are emotions. I'm looked at the what are these things? How do they work? How can we actually make that structural change? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you've put it all into this neurocycle app.
So yes, I put it into the neurocycle system. So you can apply the system for, if you, let's say you, for example, are in psychotherapy, or you're doing CBT therapy, or you're not doing any therapy, or you're doing coaching, you're doing counseling, or you just trying to cope with life. You can use the neurocycle daily, because basically all it is how do you manage your mind? And that begs the question, what is the mind? And the mind is one of the most obvious things, because the mind is enabling you and I to have this conversation. Often the mind is referred to as the hard question of science, but actually the mind is the easy question of science, because it's what helped you pose that question in the first place. So, and it's what's enabling us to have this conversation. If you were dead, we couldn't have this conversation. So, mind is the distinction. It's the ability that we have as humans, being at to our aliveness and our ability to process the experiences of life, and through thinking, feeling, choosing, and then use our brain and body physically to house that experience as a physical structural change in our brain and our body, and then we use that physical change to express that's what we say and what we do. So it's kind of a three-part process, and the mind is driving the whole thing. So if you're dead, it doesn't happen anymore. When you're alive, this is constantly going on all day long and all night long. We have this constant mind brain body interaction. So essentially, my neurocycle that I've developed is a system for how does that work and how do we direct that process. And encompassed in that is then, what is a thought? Because if we are taking life's experiences, and the mind and the me being the mind, our aliveness, and we're processing life's experiences into our brain and into our body, and then we doing things from there. We're speaking and acting from there. So, for example, I have spent years researching the mind brain body interactions. I've built all these thoughts that look like trees in my brain body, and I am now speaking from those. So my experience is I had to study, put it in my brain, build it into my brain, wire it in, code it neurally, and then now I can then I that because I've done that now I can speak about it. By the same token, you can have a trauma. So here would be a toxic thought. So you have a traumatic experience like the Ukrainian-Russian war, or a sexual abuse, or the pandemic, and or whatever things have happened to you relational wise, or whatever, and that then the experience is processed by your mind into your brain as a structural protein chemical structure that looks like a tree. And then that then produces what you say and what you do. So as a therapist, when I was practicing and now as a researcher full time, basically, and teaching this to people, I say, okay, well, let's look at how you show up. What are you saying? What are you doing? What are you feeling? What's going on in your body? What is your perspective? Those are signals that we need to embrace. They will, if you embrace them consciously and deliberately, then, which is what the neurocycle is helping you to do, consciously, deliberately embracing those signals, that will take you then to the thought, which is the product of the mind. It's the experience that landed up in your brain in this physical form that's producing all these signals. So if I reverse engineer and go from the signals, I can find the thought. Now the thought's got different parts. It's got branches and a tree trunk and roots. So now I need to embrace each of those elements and process them. So I'm going to embrace them by saying, okay, what am I saying about myself? What are my thoughts about myself? What do I think about the situation? What am I thinking about life? So you ask yourself a lot of, you're gathering awareness of a lot of basically what the signals led to. What is that specific detail? So it may be signals of a relationship that just doesn't seem to work and you're feeling very depressed about it and life sucks and you've got gut issues. That those may be the signals. You bring it back to, okay, well, this is what I'm saying about myself, the top part over here. And I'm specifically putting my hand here because we're talking about this part, which is very much my interpretation, how I'm thinking, feeling, and choosing. That is making those signals happen in my life, making me show up. I need to find those. And then I can't stop here because, like, imagine that this is a weed. If you just chop the head of a weed, it'll keep growing. So, and a lot of therapies like ACT, cognitive behavior therapy, ACT goes a bit deeper, but CBT generally says, well, that's the wrong thought and it's leading to the wrong feeling. So therefore, take that wrong thought, replace it with this thought, and then you'll feel better. But it's not, there's some great techniques to do that. And you can use them, but you need to use them at step 5, not at step 1. If you use them at step 1, what will happen is you just chop the head of the weed. You'll feel fine for a while, and then the weed will grow back. So you want to go further, you want to go deeper. So you want to start bringing in more sort of psychotherapy type approaches where you go deeper and you want to process from there. That's how I'm interpreting. How did I get there? And that'll take you to the root, the origin story. And once you find the origin story, this is where it's really important that we recognize, okay, this happened to me, but now how can I see it differently? Reconceptualization is pretty much taking x plus y equals z. If you think of the calculation, x plus y equals z. Z is a completely new way of looking at something that incorporates both the x and the y. So instead of me saying x plus y equals xy, which is not any growth forward. It's just kind of, oh, that happened. I'm rather going to reconsider. I'm going to see it differently, but I'm still acknowledging that it exists. So therefore, I can't change a sexual trauma that maybe happened to me. I can't change if I'm in the Ukrainian-Russian war. I can't change that's happening and I'm being displaced. I can't change that losing a loved one in COVID. I can't change the fact that COVID has made us feel isolated, all that stuff. And that's what I'm feeling. But I can understand now I have an understanding, okay, those signals are coming from, and leading to that interpretation, which is coming from that. So therefore I can accept that and learn to live with that. But I can now, learning to live with that means that how can I make it more palatable? And that's reconceptualization. How can I see it from another angle? This is what's happened. What can I do about this? And because you're going through such distinct phases to get to this point, you don't just jump in, you gather awareness. But even before gathering awareness, you prepare your brain, which you'll see in the app. You have to actually do brain preparation, which is typical breathing, meditation. I do little 3-minute brain preparations. That's simply to get your neurophysiology under control. Because if your neurophysiology is out of control, it's very hard to do this kind of thinking work. So you always prepare your brain first, but you never stop there. You prepare your brain and you move beyond. Then you move into gather awareness. Now, a lot of people talk about gathering awareness, mindful meditation, awareness of the moment. But I've shown in my research, and not just me, thousands of us scientists have shown that if you just become aware, you'll get worse because awareness gives you insights. But awareness doesn't give you insight. Sorry, awareness gives you awareness. Awareness tells you this is what's going on in my life at the moment, but it doesn't actually give you that insight yet. You need insight in order to manage it. So awareness can make you worse if you don't manage it. So we're seeing a lot of like mindfulness meditation, mindfulness behavior cognitive therapy, where you just meditate or you just do mindfulness exercises. People are okay for a little bit, but then they get worse because sometimes you bring up stuff that you can't deal with or you're not ready to deal with. That's another huge thing, is that each of us has our own time frame and our own time zone and our own way. Sometimes you can't deal with something for years, and it doesn't mean that it's bad for you. You eventually will have to deal with it because your signals will get to a point where that you can't function anymore, and you don't want to get that bad. But you also don't want to push someone. Like I would never push a patient. If they came to me and they were traumatized, I would never push them to talk about the trauma till they were ready. We would work on resilience building and do all kinds of things and talk about that as well to get them to the point where they're ready. Psychotherapy sometimes will push you to the point where you are forced to speak about stuff before you're ready. A lot of the current trauma approaches, like, after the Ukrainian-Russian war, you can be sure people are going to be rushing in there, the psychologist after 9/11, after all these major events. The thing is, we talk about it, get into therapy because this PTSD is going to be so bad. And so we almost trained as a society to expect to be worse off. And that's a problem. Yes, trauma does affect us. It does affect our body. I've shown this in my research. Your blood changes, your DNA changes, your everything changes. But we are a lot more resilient than what we actually realize. And that resilience actually comes from embracing, processing, and reconceptualizing in a very systematic, mind-brain driven way that you tune into your own time frame and you work through it, then that will activate resilience and enable you to handle things in stages. And that leads to a very healthy kind of lifestyle where it's okay to break down. Where it's not that you're breaking down as in having a breakdown, it's more that you are breaking things down. You break, and so separate the word break down into break down as opposed to break down. And so in that, there is going to be increased depression, increased sadness, increased because you're believing. You become aware when you start getting insight through the 5-step neurocycle process and you start going through and you start seeing where your origin story is or what it is. It's kind of horrific because sometimes it can be absolutely horrific, and you grieve for years lost as a child or years lost in a marriage, and you must grieve because the grieving, and that sadness will never go away. Like grief never goes away, but you get more space around grief, and then you can manage it more. So I think the cause is another difference. Is that I'm not trying to eliminate or I'm not trying to say this is going to completely go away, which has been a lot of the approaches psychopharmacologically. Let's just delete this thing from our brain. You can't delete something from your human experience because it's part of your story. If you've been through something, you don't want someone just to gloss over if you've been trafficked or you've been gone through some terrible thing. You want compassion. You want someone to have sympathy. You want people to hear, hey, I've been through this. It was hard for me. You want someone to say, that was hard for you. I can't even begin to imagine what you went through, but I'm here for you. That's what we want. Our stories need to be honored, but we don't want to get stuck in our story. So it's really important that we allow ourselves, when the time is right, to do that brain preparation, to gather awareness. From gathering awareness, you want to move into reflecting. Why am I having this interpretation about myself? Why have I got these branches, which are the interpretation? Where do they come from? The who, the what, the where, the why. So the second step is the reflect step. The third and fourth step are writing steps. The third step of the neurocycle is where you're writing things down as they pour out of your unconscious mind. So your mind has got 3 levels: conscious, which is awake when you're awake; subconscious, which is the bridge between the conscious and the non-conscious. The third level is the non-conscious mind. So non-conscious, subconscious, conscious. Conscious when you're awake, slowest part of your mind. There's a lot of veto power. We can override things. The subconscious is between the two. It's like a bridge. And then the non-conscious never stops. It works 24/7. It's the most intelligent part of you. It is phenomenal. It works at quantum speeds, never gets tired. And it's constantly looking after you. It's always looking for the toxic issues in your life, the big and the small, the big, the small, the ugly, and the good stuff. And the good stuff it's promoting and encouraging you to develop. and the toxic stuff it's encouraging you to deal with as you're ready. And the toxic habits it's encouraging. And how does it encourage you? It sends messages from the non-conscious, NON, not unconscious. Unconscious is when you're asleep. It's a totally different state of mind. So conscious, subconscious, and unconscious are the states of mind. Unconscious is a state of sleep or anesthesia. And so what our non-conscious mind is constantly scanning and looking the very wise part of us, looking for these, and then sending through signals through your subconscious into your conscious mind. And those signals come out in the form of your emotions, your behaviors, what you say and what you do, your bodily feelings, perspective, etc. So that's what I'm saying. If that's what our non-conscious is sending us signals that come out in how we show up, we need to look at how we show up so that we can tune back in consciously to our non-conscious mind and create a link between the two. So when we gather, we prepare the brain, gather, we reflect, and we go to the third step, which is to write. We are basically getting very intuitive. We're putting the two sides of the brain together. We're getting a whole body brain interaction going. We're getting a mind brain body interaction going. We're pulling up all kinds of roots. We are digging the soil off the roots. So we're seeing the origin story. We're seeing what this is linked to. So it's bringing up other thoughts. So the third step of writing, you just want to talk things down, like literally vomit all over the page. So there's just tons of, it makes no sense often that stage. And that's why I developed a system called the metacog, which is it's basically where it looks like this on the page. It's just basically writing all over the page in branches, and it's very non-linear, and that's very it's the pattern nature of that is very it activates the brain even deeper and activates a deeper connection between the conscious and the unconscious mind, which is what you want all the time. And so essentially then when you go to the fourth step, that's when you kind of sort out the messy third step. So the fourth step is a recheck where you're looking at antidotes, patterns, triggers. So I should say that again, you're looking for triggers and patterns to find the antidote. So it's okay, this is what's happened, this is the pattern, this is how it's showing up in my life, this is where it's coming from, or what I think it's coming from. And I'm going to, what can I do to give me a sense of peace that I can actually live and I can actually get through this? And then the fifth step is to close the cycle with a something that you can, like a thought, that the new way of thinking that you want to start building as an anchor. So let's say the very first day that you do this, you're not going to solve this in one day. As you'll see from my work in my book, Clinical Mentalness and the Neurocycle, it takes cycles of 63 days to rewire the brain. And it may take you multiple cycles. I've had some patients who've had so much trauma that it's taken them 12 cycles. It's 2 years before they've really got a handle on things. But each cycle you get more and more effective. You're getting more and more empowered. I've had patients who've said around day 21 that they feel worse. Most of them have said that. It's called the treatment effect. And they say they're more depressed and more anxious and more sad, but it's different. It's a different depression and anxiety and sadness. And the difference lies in the fact that you're grieving what you've lost, as I mentioned earlier on. So it's very healthy that because you want to grieve that. If you've lost something in your life, if you lost your sexuality was abused, or you lost a loved one, this is something that we need to be able to, when we really process that. And so grieving that is very cool. And then as you move through the 63 days, the space gets bigger and bigger around the sadness. So you learn to cope with it. So what my patients would say, my subjects in my clinical trials, is things like, I'm more depressed, but the depression is different because initially the depression was hopeless. They identified as depression as though it was who they were. By day 21, they were saying, and I put a couple of case studies in this book as well of this. They were saying things like, I'm not depression, I'm more depressed because of what happened. So there's insight that's developed. And that's all part of being human. As I said in the beginning, it's very reasonable to feel depressed if you've had an adverse circumstance. So to adopt sort of the happiness psychology or positive psychology, or the kind of happiness movement where we just got to be happy all the time and it's an external thing, it's not realistic. We're not meant to be happy all the time because some things it's not happy. They're not some things that you're happy about, but it's part of character development. It's very sad what's happening in Ukraine and Russia at the moment. And we all have trying to get happy thoughts because we feel bad. That's not realistic. We need to be angry, justifiably angry. We need to be, these are all part of being human. And I think we've moved into an era where, it's every time you have a happy, toxic thought, it's seen as a disease. And, I've watched this in my 38-year trajectory of my career, that it's turned from being a normal, yeah, let's get away from the word, a reasonable, very reasonable human response that's part of our psyche to what's happening, to being shifted. That's shifted over to, oh, you feel depression for more than 3 days and you can't, you're sleepless, and this list of symptoms, let's treat the disease. So it's been, and the science has been very inaccurate, but it's been sold to the public that
Yeah.
health is an illness, and that it's a brain disease, and that you are sick because you have a brain disease. CBT is one of the ones that, I mean, I'm not saying CBT is bad. There's some really good elements, but if you don't, after 10 sessions of CBT or whatever, I'm just giving you a random number, if you're still not better, then well, there's something wrong with your brain. And the whole thing around diagnosis, it works for things like your body. So if you have cancer, there's a diagnosis, there's a way of identifying it. There's tests you can do. You need treatment, and then you monitor the treatment. But something like when you're feeling completely thrown, when you're having extreme states like split person, like where you are like disassociating and have schizophrenic type symptoms. I hate even using signals. I rather use the word signals because symptoms are medically related. Those are telling us something, and we need to support that person in that extreme state. But it doesn't mean that they're mentally ill or that they have a brain disease, as in cancer. What it means is that they've gone through something that is absolutely shocking and their mind is broken, and they need to be helped to rebuild the elements of their mind and rebuild it. So that would be on the extreme end. Then there's the middle of this. If you think of a scale of 1 to 10, what I've just described would be a 10. But let's talk about the fives in life, which is what we not may not be directly, and I'm going to just use the Ukrainian-Russian war because it's so prevalent at the moment. We may not be, I'm in the States, you're in Italy, we're not in Russian Ukraine. But so we're not, but we having secondary concerns and anger and upset, and watching the refugees and watching schools being bombed and maternity homes. It's horrific. It's upsetting. So this would be a fire, but we'd be getting worked up and tense, and that fire is firing us up to try and do something. That's good. That's healthy. And at the same time, then there's the ups and downs. You have a family relationship that's going wrong. Someone in your family's battling. You have an argument, or you have a fight, or someone at work's been crazy. And these are the ups and downs, and those would be sort of somewhere between 1 and 5. Someone gives you a bad comment on social media. These are the ups and downs of day-to-day life that throw us. That we can be totally calm and having a great day, and then too many things happen and you feel overwhelmed and burnt out because you just didn't take a break. You didn't simply stop for 10 minutes and just look at the sunshine, or you just didn't do people pleasing. You just did not say no, and you just took one more thing on, and suddenly the day became a nightmare and whatever. Those are all. It doesn't mean that the depression that you're feeling from maybe 5 days of people pleasing in a row means that you have a mental illness. It means that you need to do some mind management. All of us need mind management. There isn't a human on this earth that is exempt from managing mind, because your mind drives everything. Your mind is not your brain. Your mind drives your brain. Your mind drives your body. Without your mind, you're dead. So if we don't learn to tune into the wise mind, which is a term that is used quite a lot across different therapy techniques, that I tend to use that term. If you don't tune into that inner wisdom that all of us have, that kind of deep, intuitive, I know what's right for me kind of thing. If I don't tune into that, then I live just in the messy part of who I am, which is also okay. There's nothing wrong with the messy mind. The messy mind is how we experience life. How you and I didn't know what the conversation, we had an idea of the conversation, but we're experimenting as we go along. But our messiness is good. It's constructive. We answer questions. You go out from here, you have a conversation with a loved one and they all worked up and it's messy and you maybe react or whatever. That's messy, but then you get it right again. So messiness is is the modus operandi. It's the currency. Messy mind is the currency, because we don't quite know what we're doing, but we're supposed to manage the messiness. You say something in an irritated voice, "Oh, sorry," and you catch that and you fix it, or you overreact to an email, you catch that and you fix it. That's what I'm talking about, as opposed to staying irritated, staying angry, staying in that place of. So that's what I'm talking about. We need mind management is self-regulating, and the neurocycle is the system that you can use on a moment by moment basis to train your conscious mind, which has this veto power, this ability to say, "Oh, okay, I am getting really worked up now. I can feel my guts sore. I'm getting overwhelmed." And you observe yourself and you say, "Okay, I need to gather awareness. Why am I doing this? let me reflect on this. Let me quickly write this down. Or if you don't have time to write it down, just visualize it because it's in the moment. What is the origin? Okay, I'm feeling burnt out. There's just too many things going on today. You get it under control and you say, what am I going to do? The first step, your active reach. Okay, I'm going to say no to I'm going to change something in the next hour. I'm going to take a break for the next hour and then I'll come back and deal with this later or whatever. You do something so that it's systematic. It's each step is driving your neurophysiology by your mind in the correct direction to make you feel empowered and activate resilience. When I activate resilience, I activate my internal wisdom. And when I have internal wisdom, I'm going to have more blood flow at the front of my brain. I'm going to have more oxygen at the front of my brain. I'm going to have balance between the two hemispheres. I'm going to have a lot of good energy flow in terms of delta, theta, alpha, beta, which means I'm going to have a lot of gamma waves, which means I'm going to make a good decision. And that's what I'm trying to help people to do in the day to day and then in the big stuff. That was
Oh, yeah.
it was a long answer.
That was what did I ask again?
You asked about the
I'm just joking. Oh, that's great. I mean, you really explained it also very well in the app, and I'm on the first day, so I'm now. Maybe you could help me. I'm formulating this question that's going to take me for the next 21 days, and I don't have. I'm not struggling with the depression or anything severe like that, but I have this. I have a Labrador brain which is not very well trained, and it's this kind of low level anxiety. I'm not enough time in the day. I've got to do everything, and I'm not in a state of peace. So how do I go about formulating a question that I'm going to tackle for the next 21 days?
Okay, so that's excellent. Your question, first of all, your question's going to change probably every day or every few days.
Oh yeah.
You find more questions. So the first thing is that you can dive. You could, as you start the day, just make sure you do some preparation, whatever it is, even if it's breathing out loud. Breathing with your eyes open. One of my favorite calming exercises or preparation exercises, if someone's feeling that hovering anxiety, is to breathe in for 3 counts, a deep breath where your whole stomach moves, and then to breathe out for 7. But that yoga
Yeah,
breathing,
yeah.
we push it out. And if you do that about 6 to 9 times, you'll feel almost high, and you'll feel this it's because you get a whoosh of blood and oxygen to the front of your brain. And it really changes how your neurophysiology is functioning. And it's great to make you feel that hovering anxiety, that I'm too busy, I've got so much to do, that can make you feel almost edgy. That breathing really can calm that down very quickly. And it's also something that you can do while you're walking around your office, or while you are looking at someone. You can do it you can do it almost quietly. I've just done it for 10 seconds there. It just looks like a
Yeah.
really deep breath. I do it a lot all the time. So sometimes I'm doing it in a very gentle way, and sometimes I'm doing it in a very forceful way, depending on where I'm at. So that's just great, quick preparation. And you can do, there's lots of other ideas too for great preparation. And then you'll gather your awareness is of those 4 signals. So the first thing is, you said the emotion that you have is sort of a hovering anxiety, like a lack of peace. So that's good. You're already describing it. So hovering anxiety, lack of peace are the 2 words you said. Then in terms of what are you saying and what are you doing? So do you find you speak quicker, or you move around a lot, or you
Sounds
start
right. Yeah, yeah.
okay, so sort of almost, as you say, Labrador.
Get off the hamster wheel. I'm going for the day.
Go for the day. Okay, so they're very good. Excellent. So you said that. Now the third thing is that probably where in your body, in your gut, are you feeling
Gut.
tension?
Yeah, yeah. Feel tension in the gut.
Very often where the first, because there's a direct brain link to the brain and the gut. The gut has as many neurons as the spinal cord, which is fascinating. So we build a thought into our brain, and the thought that you're operating from is, I have a lot to do. Okay. And that I can't do it or something. We're going to discover that more as you go along. But as you build it in your brain, this is just a side note. As soon as it's in your brain, you also build a replica of that same thought that's in your brain in a tree-like structure. You build it in every single cell of your body in terms of a change in the cytoskeleton of a cell. So the cell's kind of held in place by a little mini skeleton called the cytoskeleton. And we build memories there too. So we have 37 to 100 trillion cells in our brain and our body. So we build 37 to 100 trillion memories of everything. And that's why we have body memory. That's basically body memory as well as brain memory. And the mind's doing all of that. And it all happens fast. But the gut, it's brain, gut, and then the rest of the body. It's very quick. It's
Mm,
pretty seamless. I mean, it's very difficult to even watch the time difference because it happens so fast. And so think of it as a whole mind, brain, body experience. So when you look at those signals, initially, as you look at them on day one, you're going to look at, so you've got them. So anxiety, a little bit of harboring anxiety, a feeling of, what was it, the Labrador, you
yeah.
said some sort of Labrador kind of brain. You said your behavior sort of hamster wheel. Then you said so body, gut, and then perspective. The fourth signal will be perspective. So your shift, your perspective from the sounds of things, correct me if I'm wrong, is I don't have enough time to get through all of this stuff. It's just too much. And that's a pattern potentially that, and it being a pattern, is it happening a lot? Is it happening
Mm-mm.
once a week or once a month, or is it happening almost daily?
Daily, yeah.
Okay, so then it's a pattern. Anything that happens like almost daily is a pattern. So patterns, and if it's disrupting, which it is, because the fact that you're talking about it, it's disrupting, it's taking peace away. The disruption is taking peace away. Okay, so what we've just done is a gather. The first step, the gather awareness. You have
Right.
identified more signals, and you brought that down to the thought. The overarching thought is too busy, can't get through the day, kind of thing. So you might rename the thought. And that could be when you get to step 3 and you write it down, you do a circle it in your diary, or you can write it into your phone. I don't know where you want to write things down. I recommend on paper that you get yourself a neurocycle journal.
Okay.
We busy, they're in print at the moment, so we don't have them available yet, but you could just use any diary, any journal. And you write a little circle in the middle, and then write down the, too much to do, or whatever that thought, name the thought. So name it. So in the gather awareness step, you've done quite a bit. You become aware of those signals, you've labeled them like we've labeled them. You've identified, you added a little bit more detail, and you've named the thought. Okay, so you don't have to write it immediately, but just name the thought. This is anxiety, because I'm too busy. Now you look at the top part, and you think, and you start gathering a little bit more awareness. Oh, sorry, my phone was not on do not disturb. You start gathering a little bit more awareness. So you're still in the gather awareness step of what is your interpretation around these signals.
Mm.
So, and to get that interpretation, you can start making full sentences out of your signals. So you can say, I feel hovering anxiety and I feel panicky when, or something. Try and get a full sentence. Try and sort of,
Okay.
or even if you can't get a why or when yet, it's amazing when you say it out loud in a full sentence, and try and be as specific as you can. You'll get a little bit more detail, and you'll start seeing, oh, I'm actually seeing myself as maybe incapable of getting through the day, or I'm going to let someone down. You'll start seeing some things.
Some leaves on the trees.
You'll start seeing that, yes, you'll start with the leaves and the branches. You'll start looking at the branches. The leaves generally are the emotions, and then the branches are the others, the what we're saying, what we're doing. Uh,
Mm.
so when you describe the leads, you're describing the emotions. When you describe what you're saying, and doing, and when you describe what you are, um, um, your body's, how your gut feels and how often, get specific like that. That's all the branches. Then you go to step 2, and step 2 now is starting to lead you down to the tree trunk. And step 2 is reflect, and that's going to be the who, the what, the where, the why. And you may answer all of those questions. You may only answer why. You can answer why 5 times. I wouldn't go more than 5 times in one day because it's just too much. You don't want to spend more than 15 to 45 minutes. So you're sort of
Okay.
taking me longer to explain this than it is that you'll do. You'll do it quicker. So you're going to spend a maximum, these 5 steps, you're going to spend a maximum of 7 minutes on each step, but I'm recommending little 1 even.
Okay.
It's been about 3 minutes max. So anything from 3 to sort of, you don't want to go, you want to do the 5 steps in 45 minutes. So 45 minutes divided by 5 is going to give you 15, 30. No, it's going to give you about 7 minutes. What's it, 5, 7, 35? It's about 8, 9 minutes, somewhere around that long. So I know that I'm not getting very specific, but there's a reason. Your brain works very specifically. Always be specific. Your brain's pattern, it's logarithmic, it's calculating, it's quantifying. All the inside the branches, which are made of proteins, these calculations being made all the time, calculations in order. So when the more ordered you become, the more you specify, the more you follow like systems and numbers, the more you align and get order in your brain. And
Mm.
mine also works like that gravitational field, the electromagnetic light forces. These are all quantum calculations that are happening. So we want them, instead of them, we want them to kind of be more, a little bit more ordered, so that the numeration that I've got to do step one, I've got to do step two, I'm going to limit my time, is very healthy for helping you to manage that process too. So the reflect question would then simply would be to say, why do I feel, why do I feel this hovering anxiety? When do I feel it? Where do I feel it specifically? What circumstances? So you're starting to get some detail. And as I said, limit the time. So, and you can use all the WH questions. You could just use one. Sometimes you're just going to get where, and you get so much information out of that, your time's up, and you go to the next step. And the next step then is to write whatever you gathered awareness of. So the signals, the little interpretation sentences, the who, what, when, where, why, write that down. And that you don't have to worry about tidiness. There you write, you circle in the middle of the page, write down the name of the thought, hovering anxiety, and then just literally have little, like a tree has branches. Pick a branch, write a word or a phrase. And then from that phrase, what's connected to it? Just, and until you do this fast, it's unreal. You drag stuff out of your unconscious mind that you're
Wow.
just not aware of. It, these steps are taking you from your conscious mind, making your conscious mind work with your unconscious mind. And that's what it wants. That is very powerful. So that's what these steps, that's why it's so systematic, because it's forcing you to get that connection between the two. Otherwise, we stay on a surface level and we don't get deep. And
Okay.
then we don't get sustainable change. Okay, so when you do the medical in that way, just write down whatever comes to mind. As you find, you'll write a branch and you write something, and you think, oh, hang on, and I'm going to write this here. And then, you find yourself making these categories, and then you suddenly put this must go there. And you don't even know why some of it makes sense, but a lot of it won't make sense. And as you go through the process, maybe the first day you hardly write anything, second day you write a ton, and the third day you only write a few things. It's fine. Just go with the flow. In
Okay.
step 4 is now you look at what you've written and you start asking yourself, okay, what am I seeing here? Take a colored pen and start saying, drawing arrows and links and circling and adding on information. What can you see in terms of patterns and triggers? So am I seeing that this hovering anxiety seems to happen when I start work, or on a Sunday night, or at 8 o'clock in the morning, or it gets worse by 12? Or what are the patterns?
Right. Okay.
Triggering. Okay, as soon as I know I've got to do another interview, and then I know I've got only 5 minutes break before the next interview. Okay, I'm booking my interviews too close, or I've got this expectation people have of me to produce this incredible music and to touch people's lives. Oh my gosh, can I live up to that expectation? That's the sort of thing you want to start
Mhm.
looking. You're not going to get this all on day one. It's
Mm.
going to take you, day 5 is very revelatory. Day 7 is another day where
Okay.
yeah, but day 14 is another day. Day 21 is another day. When you hit day 21, doing this constantly, when you hit day 21, you will find that you may feel a little bit worse, as I've said, because a lot's been revealed. Because it may come down to, if we go down, but we check as you do step 4, you are doing all this patterns and identification and what about, this is what's happened. What can I do? What can I do about the problem? How can I change? How can I see this differently? Okay, I'm actually people pleasing. It looks like I'm people pleasing. I don't need a people please. I'd rather do this. What do I need? So you answer you can analyze. This 4th step is an analysis. It's an autopsy. Think of doing a mental autopsy, like they pull a body apart to try and see. I know it's really quite it's strong. It's a strong analogy, but it works really well. You try to pull it apart. What caused this? And that's giving you insight into this. That takes you that step starts showing you more. And the day one, you may just, if this is a tree planted with the
Mm.
analogy, you may only get a little bit of the sand off. So only this little part sticks out. And there's still a lot more. So it's fine. You've got as much time as you need. You do not have to solve this today, but keep telling yourself that. So you also time it after 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 minutes of doing that. You stop and then you go to step 5, which is, okay, this is the work I've done. You look at what you've written and say,
Okay.
what one positive thing can I take out of this today? Is it a little quote that am I going to give myself a quote? Is there a favorite quote that kind of summarizes today's work, or is there an antidote statement that I could create? Like, I'm just, I like to achieve.
Mm.
That could be your active reach. And, you may need to that may be the thing that you haven't given yourself permission to use the anxiety in a positive way to help you achieve, and you're feeling maybe guilty about doing that. Maybe that's who you are. Maybe you need to have a
Mm,
bit of anxiety. Like, I don't know. I don't know you. That's what you may find.
yeah.
And even if that isn't the case, or whatever it is, that statement is something positive. It's more than a positive affirmation. Although some people will say, oh, that's just a positive affirmation. It's got such a lot of work behind it. So that statement that you capture anchors you in the day, and that you write down in the app. You'll see you can type it into the app, and you can set it to pop up 7 times in the day. You can, and you don't have to only do it 7 times. You can, it pops up so that it comes into your conscious mind. Whatever you think about the most is going to grow. So what you want to do, you're taking yourself in a new direction. So during the course of the day, you want to practice that anchoring statement. You don't want to go through and do this work again. You've done the work.
Okay.
Only allowed to think of it the day. Tomorrow you'll pick up and you'll do the work again. So the only thing you can think of in the day related to this is your anchoring statement. So if it is, oh, maybe this is good for me, if it's all you say to yourself and it pops up every time you feel, oh, maybe this is good for me. So you say that in a calming voice to yourself, either out loud or in your head. And then the next day you pick up the work again. And so you go through it, you will see so much revealed. Eventually, it may take you back to childhood, where maybe you were told that you're not good enough and you have to do X, Y, Z. Maybe it's not even that deep. Does not everything is because you had a lousy childhood. Parents are slammed like so much, and also we have such a trauma. And I'm all for being trauma informed, but I'm also for balance and resilience. And we have to be very careful that we create this thing. Oh my gosh, you had a terrible childhood. You're broken for the rest of your life. You are not broken for the rest of your life. You're an amazing human being, and you've been through stuff, and you're having a very, very, very reasonable response. So let's see, how can we get you back to a point where you can have peace again? See, that's a total shift to saying, oh, the trauma and it's so bad and you've got to get back to your inner child. And not that I'm anti any of that, but don't stay stuck there, because then your trauma will become your vengeance, and your kindness will shift to, you will lose kindness and compassion, and you'll become a bitter person, blaming everyone else for everything. My parents were never good enough. This one, and we don't, and we've created a society, we've over therapeuticized. We've created a bit of a society at the moment where people are feeling like, oh, it's everyone else's fault. So I'm not saying don't honor what happened. I'm telling you, go find it. But you're never going to understand, for example, why someone raped someone, why someone did what they did. So don't bother with trying to find out the why, because you're never going to understand someone else. You're not an expert on someone else's experience. You're an expert on your own. What you want to do is you want to at least find the cause and say, okay, that's what's happened. I don't know why. I accept I don't know why, but I'm going to move forward. So it may be some deep thing, but it also just may be that you've just got into a habit of thinking anxiety is bad for you. Meanwhile, anxiety is actually really good for you. So instead of the anxiety working for you, it's been working against you. So now you need to make it work for you. So it was no deep childhood trauma. It's just that you've got yourself into some bad patterns.
Mm,
And you need to build some new patterns into your life that are more healthy, and that you take more breaks. Maybe you're just not taking enough breaks in the day. I know that happens to me. I get so caught up in my work and I love the stuff that my unconscious mind is totally fed and consumed. And my conscious mind's busy getting exhausted, because it's like a cell phone. And so your brain and conscious mind are like cell phones, computers. They eventually will run out of charge. And then you keep pushing them, and you push yourself, and then you can feel hovering anxiety because you're exhausted. But if you just went outside, as I said earlier on, and just go outside and stare at nothing for 10 minutes, you can restore a lot of that balance.
mm,
You know, sometimes I'm going to stop work at 6 o'clock or whatever. I'm going to do not more. I'm not going to do more than 8 hours. Because often we think, oh, I can do 15 hours. And then the next day we wonder, why is my creativity suffering? And you get so frustrated with yourself. And then I'm forgetting things that I know I don't normally forget. You're probably just tired.
mm.
Society today, and we're getting told, oh my gosh, that's a signal of some underlying trauma. You with this. We've got to be careful of making sure we are balanced in finding what their trauma was and the impact, and reconceptualizing. And some things aren't heavy trauma. Some things are just, as I said, just things that we got ourselves into.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting what you said about blaming other people in modern society is really
Yeah.
we all do that. So yeah, yeah. All right. Well, this has been. I'm going to get started with the app. So this has been great. I'll send you an update. Let you know how I get on.
Fantastic. I'd love to know. Let me know. That'll be amazing. And I'd love to know how you see this and everything. Um, do you need anything else from me?
Mm.
Got all, a link, well, you got the link to the app and the book and everything else, and
Yep,
my
got the app.
social media handle. I don't think you need to put all that in your show notes.
I will do. Yes, definitely.
Have you got all of that? Could you need my team to send it to you?
I've got it. Yeah. If anyone just listening, your website is it drcarolineleaf.com or
Yes,
Dr. Leaf?
CarolineLeaf.com. Yeah, just drleaf.com. And then my social media handles are Dr. Caroline Leaf. And I'm on TikTok as well. I'm on everything. And my podcast is called Cleaning Up the Mental Mess, the same name as my latest book.
Okay, and that's also on YouTube. And then there's the app is called Neurocycle, all one word on
Yeah.
on the on the App Store or the Google
Neu-
Play Store.
Neuro stands for brain, and you're cycling through your brain with your mind. That's where the neurocycle concept comes from. You do cycles.
Love it. I'm a fan.
Wonderful. I want to hear your song that you sing about the neurocycle.
Okay. Well, I'm inspired.
Thank you. So good meeting you.
Real pleasure. Take care.
Sorry, I have to run. I've got the next interview in 5 minutes.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
I can't live in this place. It makes me crazy. All a while with naked greed, to which somehow it seems that we have all agreed. I can't live in a city. It makes me crazy. Overcrowded, poisoned air, frowning faces surrounding me everywhere. And I can't live with a job. It makes me crazy. Sold myself, get paid in stress, and what I have left of my life's worth so much less. When there's so much confusion and so much is wrong, and there's so many people, then I must be strong. So much is wasted and so much strife. I need to change my life. I can't live in a house. It makes me crazy. Even though I've got so much stuff, what I have just never seems to be enough. And I can't live with a woman. They make me crazy. Always complaining, nothing's right. All I get is criticism every night. There's so much confusion and so much is wrong, and there's so many people, then I must be strong. So much is wasted and so much strife. I need to change my life. I can't live with a body. It makes me crazy. Aches and pains, colds and flu, and it never looks the way I want it to. I can't live with a mind. It makes me crazy. Always talking, never peace. Even meditation gives me no release. I can't live with myself. I make me crazy. 'Cause after all the things I've changed, I myself remain insane.